Welcome to the What If audio experience. We're taking a real look inside of what it means to be successful in today's society. From entrepreneurship to family, from victories to failures, we're covering all the topics of what it looks like to create your own definition of success. Our mission is to bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to be. We may not have all the answers, but the one thing we know for sure is it starts with you. Welcome back to the What If audio experience. I'm Jeffrey Jensen here with my brother Jason, and this is episode 2. And today we're going to be talking about some questions that we've been asked over the years on entrepreneurship and business and all that good stuff. So Jason's got the questions, and we're going to dive right in.
Yeah, we're going to go back and forth and answer these, but we're going to start off with a pretty big question here for Jeff. And one of the questions we asked quite a bit is, what does it mean to be successful?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think when you really unpack that, there's so many answers, and I don't think there's one right answer or a wrong answer. I think success really comes down to what you want out of life and what your goals are. For me, success is always progressing. I always want to be moving forward. To me, success has nothing to do about a monetary number. It has nothing to do about materialistic things. It's more about finding your passion, finding happiness, and then always be growing, always be changing. I heard it said one time that you never arrive. And I think that for me is what success is really all about. It's never arriving. You're always pursuing becoming better, going bigger. And to me, that is really what success and fulfillment is all about. It's really all about finding your passion, doing something that gets you excited every day, and not really chasing a dollar sign or a material thing. It's really just about progression.
I think what makes you happy, right? I mean, it's just
for sure.
Success is happiness. And to add into that, it's so different for everybody. You know, if chasing after money is what makes you happy, for some people that may be success. If it's being a stay-at-home mom, if it's having a great marriage, if health and wellness is your goal and you want six-pack abs and you want to compete in the CrossFit games or whatever it may be, I think a lot of people just get so caught up in success is equaled by monetary numbers, but I would say it's just what makes you happy.
Right, for sure. And like I said, there's really no right or wrong answer to this question. It's more or less what you desire from life. But I think inevitably, no matter what the path is, whether that's being a stay-at-home mom, whether that's being an entrepreneur and building a medium-sized business, a small business, a multi-billion-dollar company, I think whether it's being in the CrossFit games, whatever it is, I think progression. I think always moving forward, always learning is what really drives happiness, in my opinion. I think if you're not moving forward, you're inevitably moving backwards. And so I don't think anyone in life likes to go backwards. Everyone wants to progress forward. So to me, progression at the end of the day is success.
Yeah, I think, again, adding on, it's progression so important. But with our society now, with social media and so many different outlets to go and look at what other people are doing, I think it's also so important to make sure you measure your growth with yourself. It's so easy to look at everybody's highlight reels, and I think a lot of people get discouraged that in their mind they're not successful compared to somebody else, whether it's somebody they know, someone famous, someone on social media. But the biggest thing is it's just you against you. It's every day. So just make sure it's a comparison of what are you doing? What can you do to get better in all those aspects we just covered? So I think that's big.
For sure. You can't compare your day 1 to someone's day 100. It's like with weight loss and getting in shape. You can't look at someone with abs and be like, how come I don't have abs yet? They've been working on that for years and years and years. So same thing with success and same thing with happiness. You've got to put in the work. And yeah, Instagram, all that stuff is, you don't know anyone's backstory. Everyone's posting their PR'd self online. So for sure.
Yeah. Next question, something that I think a lot of people, especially in our age group in this generation, are so focused on now is entrepreneurship, owning a business. You see a lot of Instagram accounts where it says entrepreneur, owner, CEO, founder, whatever it may be. And so many people, I think, see other people starting businesses and think that is the only path to success. And I'll give this question to Jeff as well. Do you think that everyone should be an entrepreneur?
My short answer is no. To really unpack that, I think that self-awareness is huge, and I think that being self-aware will allow people to realize what makes them successful and truly happy. And so I think that entrepreneurship has become very cool. If you listen to a lot of the mainstream guys and a lot of the big speakers, a lot of people are talking about that right now, how entrepreneurship has become this cool ideological thing. And I think that if it's not something born within you, I think you can become a great entrepreneur, but I think a lot of it has to do with DNA, and a lot of it has to do with your self-awareness. But I think that there's so many people that just see it as this cool, flashy lifestyle, and to be honest, entrepreneurship is lonely, and quite oftentimes it's miserable. There's so many great things that come with it, and then there's so many negative things that come with it. You know, I think about it all the time, and we're really blessed because we have each other. We kind of bounce things off of each other. We kind of co-lead, and it helps. But most entrepreneurs are running a company by themselves, and there's no one to go to. It's a very lonely space. And the nice thing about having a job or working with someone else is there's always someone you can point the blame to. But when you're an entrepreneur, when you're running a company, everything stops with you. So at the end of the day, everything's your fault. And so I think people really need to be self-aware and realize that, one, it's okay to not be an entrepreneur. There's tons and tons of people that have incredible skill sets that are needed by thousands and millions of companies all over the world. And so, one, I don't think it's something to be discouraged about if you're not an entrepreneur. I think that's great. But you really got to be self-aware. You really got to dig in and realize, like, hey, am I born to build a business because it's what I have to do? I can remember a time, I haven't had very many jobs that I worked for somebody. I've always pretty much done my own thing, but I can remember the few times where I did have a job and it was suffocating. It was just, and it was a great job and great people, and most people would say, why in the world would you not want to do that? But for me, it was just that deep down intuition that, hey, I'm just suffocating. I've got to do something for myself. I've got to be building something and progressing forward. So I think you really need to have that self-awareness and look in the mirror and say, hey, do I want to do this because I have to do it, because that's the only option that I have, because I can't function without being an entrepreneur? Or do I want to do it because it's the cool, up-and-coming, flashy thing? You know, kind of like you look at all these people that are super into crypto right now and trading and all that stuff, which is all great. But are you doing it because you love it and you have to do it and it doesn't matter the outcome? Or are you doing it because you think that that's the only way to be successful or the only way to make a lot of money? You know, I can tell you right now, and this isn't my quote, I'm stealing this straight off Gary Vee, but, you know, the number 17 at Facebook will have more money in their lifetime than you and I ever put together. It's just being self-aware. You might have a skill set or a talent that is very, very useful at a company, and you can go and have massive success and massive wealth and massive fulfillment doing what you love to do, but it doesn't have to be around owning your own business. So short answer is no, long answer, you just heard.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough. Building a business is not an easy thing to do, and like you're saying, I feel like a lot of people go after it because they think it's what they want. It's the quote-unquote cool thing to do. But most of the time, you don't see the back end. You see people's highlight reels. You see all of the stuff that you want them to see, but you don't see the reality is a great business owner. You have people working for you, yes, but the reality is you're working for them. They don't see all the missed parties and vacations and the weekends. I mean, the past 7 years of our life, we've given up 98% of that stuff. I mean, it's when something happens, you are the last person in line. And this isn't to discourage people from owning a business, but to hopefully encourage people to realize that it's not necessarily the only way, but for a lot of people, it's the better way not to do it. And I think a lot of people get into it too early and aren't ready. Like, we've had so much success with our business in the last 2 years, but there's 7 years prior to that that people don't see that led up to where we're at today. There's tons of shortcomings and failures and figuring out that led to having the success we're having now, and we're still learning, we're still growing. So I would just encourage people, not only if you're unsure about can you run a business, but it's making sure you have the past experience, the realization of what it actually entails. It's just not all this whole great Instagram life. There's so much sacrifice, and I know for me, I'd rather work 80 or 100 hours a week for myself building something than 40 hours a week for someone else. But there's also a lot of times I'm envious of it. Like, there's so many times I wish I could just, go work for someone Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, have the weekend, not have the constant stress. And again, there's no right or wrong way. I think it's just how you're wired. So self-awareness is big in that as well. But no, I definitely agree.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is, most people that, if you're listening right now and this is a conversation that you're having with yourself, you're probably still pretty young. I feel like once you kind of get out of your 20s, you really start to make some strides and understand, who you are, what you want to do with your life. So I would say, if you're getting out of high school, if you're graduating college, if you're just trying to figure it out and you think you want to be an entrepreneur, just try something. Try to start building something or go work for different people. Just try and taste different things. Figure out what you really like to do. And if you can figure out what you like to do, then try and build a business around it and just kind of see. And it may be something where, like Jason and I together make a great team. I'm much more of a creative space type person. And he's much more of an organized business mindset. So we play really well off of each other. So maybe that is you. Maybe you do want to work for yourself. You're really creative or you have these great ideas, but maybe you're not the best at being organized or keeping the books or paying the taxes and doing all the nitty-gritty stuff that no one ever talks about on Instagram. My advice to you would be find that perfect business partner. Find the person that really loves that side of the business and then do something together. But moving on, I think it's a great question for Jason. I'm about to graduate high school, and I'm not sure what I want to do. My parents want me to go to college. I feel pressured to go. Should I listen to them and go to college? Is college still worth it? And for me, I'm a college dropout. Jason graduated, has a college degree, so I want to let him kind of give his opinion on this and kind of see what he thinks.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to me really has to be unpacked. I don't know if I can just give a yes or no answer, but I would just say college is definitely changing. I don't think people realize it's one of the biggest businesses in the world. It's crazy to me that a 17-year-old kid can go get $100,000 in student loans, go to school, and it's one of the only loans in the world you can't file bankruptcy on. People get stuck with student debt all of the time. It can be a tough situation. It's not what it once was. I feel like 20 years ago, yes, you go to college, and if you get a degree, you'd be set up for success. I also just think, again, every single situation is different. Where we live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, there's really not a lot of industry. We're a tourist town. So having a college degree, you're pretty limited to what you can do just in general. It's a hard area to be successful. I've lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, where that's not the case. If you had a degree, you could throw a ball and go get a starting job with a $35,000 a year salary. So to answer, I would say every person is so different. The biggest thing I would say is ask yourself why you're going. I think a lot of people go just because it is the norm of what you were supposed to do. And I think our generation is starting to wake up and figure out it's not always the best solution. I would say, hey, if you're fortunate enough to have scholarships or to have parents who have worked really hard to support you and will pay for you to go to college, my answer would be yes. I would say absolutely. If you can go to college for free, 100%, I think it's worth it. The people you meet, the networks you create, the learning you gain from it, obviously, if you take it serious, if you go in there with a mindset to learn and walk away with new relationships, definitely worth it. If you're 17 years old and it's going to cost you $100,000 to go to school, I would really strongly question that. And I think the biggest question in that situation is, again, why are you going? If your dream was to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, something that required you to have that college degree, then yeah, obviously, of course, it's worth it to go. If you're like so many people that have no idea what they want to do with their life and think, hey, I'm just going to go to college and figure out, I'd strongly advise not to go. I think the smarter solution would be to have time to figure that process out. I think you'd be better off going and working a job, 3 jobs, 5, 10 jobs, however much you could do. Go out and figure out what it is you want to do for 2 reasons. One, you may find a job or a career path that you love that doesn't require you to have that degree. And now, instead of taking 4 years away from what you're building, you've gotten that jump start. You're also making money rather than spending money. But then number 2, in that process, if you do find something that you love, you're going to go to school with a whole different aspect. I went to school for business. I'd love to be able to go back now with what I've experienced and take in that information and see how differently it registered. When you're in school at the time and you're young, I played sports in school, you have your friends, you have everything going on. I think a lot of people, it's just a pass situation. Like, hey, I just got to get good grades, pass these classes, move on to the next thing so I can graduate. I don't think you're really taking in that information from a actual standpoint to apply it in a lot of areas. I mean, it's just so much information. It's hard to retain all of that over 4 years. Now, again, that's not everybody, but my advice would be if you don't know what you want to do with your life and you don't have the opportunity to go to school for free, I would not suggest going. I'd recommend go out into the real world, if you will, get some jobs, meet some people, take some time to figure out who you are as a person, and go back to school when you're 20 or 21. Take that time to figure out what you should go to school for, and again, if it's worth it. I just think school's changed a lot, and I think the mindset of people going in is, again, hey, I just need to go and get my degree, and then they come out and they're right back where they left off. It's such a hard setup to be successful at any age, but especially a young person, because the entirety of your life you're guided through exact steps, like elementary school, middle school, high school, college, get through those 4 years. Everything's lined out for you. And then you graduate and you're sitting there like I was, graduated with honors, was an All-American athlete, did everything, and got done and was like, man, what's next? And I didn't know. I ended up serving tables and then started working for myself. I wouldn't go back and change going to college. I learned a lot, met great people. But again, I think you need to figure out what it is you want to do rather than investing $100,000 or $50,000 or even $20,000 in the next 4 years of your life. Because then if you do that, not only will you still be left with the same situation of what I want to do with my life, now you've got this massive debt that you're starting your life out with, which it's already hard enough that you now have to pay. So the trap, as some people would call it, is you have all this college debt, you get out the first job you take, now you've got your rent, your car payment, your student loans. Well, you get to the point where your budget either surpasses or is very close to what you're making, and then you really can't leave your job, and it just makes it more difficult. So again, every person's different, but I think, and I wish that young people would be encouraged more to evaluate their options just instead of just, hey, I'm going to go to school and move on.
And I think, too, and let me know if you agree with this, but I think as business owners, we're not really looking for people that have degrees anymore, and I don't think that's just with us. I think that's with a lot of business owners. Business owners now are really looking for your personality, your work ethic, how you get along with others, because 95% of industries, and like Jason said, if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or something that's a skilled that you have to get licensed for, like obviously, yes, you need to go to college. That's the only way you're going to be able to pass those tests to get your license. But if you want to be, in social media marketing, or you want to be in sales or any of these things, 95% of industry is going to train you exactly how they want you to be. They're more looking at your social skills, how you get along with others. Are you punctual? Can you show up on time? Can you be a team player? And so, yeah, I completely agree. I think unless you're going to go to school for something that you're going to have a degree for, you're better off to go and find someone in the industry that you want to be in and work for them for free. I mean, go out there and work for a year for free and serve tables at night.
For sure.
I think that's the best way to figure out what you want to do. Not only that, but you go work for someone for free, you put in the work and you've got the skill set. You're 95% of the time you're going to get a job offer. They're going to look at you and say, hey, man, we've had this person for over a year. They're phenomenal. We don't want to lose them. And so I think that's better money well spent. Put in the effort to figure out your living situation. Don't rack up all the debt. and go out there and just taste stuff. But that kind of leads into the next question that I feel like we get asked all the time, and I think you hit on a lot of it, so this will probably be a shorter answer, but what's the best advice you could give to someone who doesn't know what they want to do with their life?
For sure, and a lot of stuff I just said would apply there. But the biggest thing that I've learned, and I've shared this with so many people, but to keep the answer simple is rather than trying to go after and figure out what exactly it is you want to do with your life, work backwards and figure out exactly what you don't want to do. Because we now live in a society where, again, you can see so much of what people are doing. There's so many opportunities. There's so many things to do. It is hard to know where to start. I mean, even with us in the business we run, I don't know if I'd say, like, yes, this is 100% the dream. This is what I'll do for the next 60 years of my life. But what I've learned is that people get stuck because they don't know what they want to do. They become unhappy. They become unsatisfied, and they don't allow themselves to move forward. The best advice I can give is go take a job, go take an internship in an area that you think you'd want to be in. And if a month in you find yourself unhappy, then leave, quit, do it in the right way. I've probably left 6 or 7 jobs. Quitting is probably the worst feeling in the world the day you know you're going to walk in and quit. But I made 2 big decisions in my life, and one was to not invest my time in something that I wasn't passionate about and something I didn't want to pursue or got me closer to my end goal. And then 2, to never burn a bridge or a relationship. There's a job that I had that I did it the right way. I quit, gave my 2 weeks notice. I ended up staying on for 4 or 5 more months because that company was in a tough situation and needed me. So as long as you're doing it the right way, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a job. And if you realize, hey, this isn't for me, and leaving, I just encourage people, especially when you're young, when you don't have kids or a wife or all this responsibility, stop worrying about so much, like, what is your dream job? Most people, I don't think, ever figure that out and start focusing on, hey, I know I don't want to do this. You go and serve tables. Okay, I definitely don't want to do this. You go and work for an IT company, not for me. You do door-to-door sales, not for me. And you start compiling that list of what you definitely don't want to spend the rest of your life doing. What you'll find from that as a result is a more narrowed approach of what it is you do want to do. So my advice would be go out and try as much as you can, do as much as you can, and you'll find yourself figuring out what you don't want to do, because if it's not your dream job, it's not for you, and use that to keep stepping towards finding what is for you. So
I think on that too, another great piece of advice, especially for someone who's young, someone who's just graduating high school, college, that age group, is keep your living expenses as low as possible.
For sure.
If you can go out there and have 3 roommates and live as cheap as possible, don't buy anything, don't buy dumb stuff, don't try and impress anybody, that's going to give you so much flexibility to move from job to job without being stressed of, I have to have this paycheck to make rent, or I have to have this paycheck to pay my car payment, or I have to have it because I bought, a Supreme book bag to impress people that don't even like me. I think if you can keep your overhead super, super low, it's going to give you so much flexibility to go out there, figure out what you want to do, and then that's going to allow you to really start to chase your dreams.
Yeah, I mean, we could do an entire podcast off of this subject, but to add on, what I would say is if someone's unhappy with what they're doing in their life or their job, you have to look at the entire picture, because if you're unhappy in what you're doing, you can't just be selfish and only look at what you're doing as an actual job. You've got to look at the entire picture. If you're not happy with your day-to-day and your work life, you need to evaluate your weekend life as well. You need to check out and see, what am I doing? Like Jeff said, keeping your overhead low. But I've just met too many people that have so much passion, so much to offer, so much that they could do, who aren't sure of what they want in life, but they work Monday through Friday. They go blow $100, $200, $300 on the weekend. They have nicer cars, they have all this overhead, and they're stuck. They'll never be able to get out of their job because they can't afford to. So it's like, instead of trying to just go and have that release over the weekend because you don't like what you do week to week, play the long game. Don't go for the short-term results and satisfaction. Start saying, hey, I'm not going to go out. I'm going to save my money. I'm going to put myself in a position where I can get out of my job, and that's going to be a huge help in being able to figure out, again, what it is you do actually want to do. So going on from that, next question for Jeff, is it important to have balance in your life?
So yeah, I think balance is very important. I think that there's no straight definition for balance for everybody. I think everyone's definition of balance is going to be different. I think that you really have to take different points of your life and audit them and see what's important to you at that point of life. For me, I've got a wife, I've got 2 little boys, and so balance is very important to me in a sense that I want to make time to be able to spend with them. I want to be home with them as much as I can, but I also understand that I'm 31 and I have ambitions to build a really large business. And so I think you really have to look in the mirror and say, do my actions map my ambitions? And so, maybe you're, in your early 20s, you're single, then I would say, no, you don't need balance. I would say if you are an entrepreneur who's 21 years old, who's starting to build your business, and you say, okay, well, do I need to have balance? Like, do I need to be able to go out and party on the weekends and hang out with my friends or play video games? If you need that in your life to have fulfillment and be happy, then sure, but you have to really make sure that your actions are mapping out to your ambitions. So if you're 21 and you're telling me, hey, I want to build a multi-million-dollar company, then no, you probably shouldn't have a lot of balance in your life. I think balance comes in waves. I think there's a time and a place for being refreshed. I think you need that downtime. Some people you have to have that unwind time to focus, but I also think you can't play 12 hours of video games every day and then tell me you want to build a multi-million-dollar company. It just doesn't work like that. So I think balance is different for everybody. I think it's very, very important, and I think that it's something that everyone has to sit down on an individual basis and say, what are my ambitions? What are my actions looking like? And how do I make that work for my lifestyle?
For sure. And I think you talked about different times of your life, if you refer to them as different seasons of life, right, that you're going through, whether you're 21 and single and no kids, no spouse, or you're 31 with a wife and 2 kids, it's all going to look different. I think, too, there's almost a formula you need to look at as far as starting with what does success look like for me? What we talked about before, whether it's making money, building a business, having a family, whatever that may mean, and then mapping those actions. But I also want to encourage people to realize and have self-awareness that not only is there the right place and right time to go all in on something, but I think it's important too to look at different aspects of your life. And here's what I mean by that. Even for us now, we're both married. Jeff has 2 kids. There's been seasons where we've gone all in on work with 212. We've put in a full month, 2 month of just working incredibly hard and then needed to pull back. Because that time at home or the time with the kids needed to be reevaluated. I know for myself personally, really the last 3 years of my life, I've gone so in on work and my relationship with my wife, but my health has kind of fallen from that as far as staying in the gym and just being on top of taking care of me. That's one of my biggest weaknesses is I'm willing to put in as many hours a day as physically possible, whatever it takes. But I look at my definition of success, and being healthy and being in good shape is a part of that. And so now I'm trying to get back focused on taking care of me. So to encourage you guys, like we talked about in the beginning, as long as you're growing in life in at least one area, don't be so hard on yourself. And I think it is important to map all of your areas of your life, because if you're only working, you're not putting time towards your family, to me, that's not success. To me, that's just, yeah, you may make a lot of money, but being wealthy, having a full life, I think you need to focus on all areas, but it definitely comes and goes with seasons. And for everyone out there who has an opportunity and wants to build something that isn't married or has kids or whatever their responsibilities may be, my encouragement is to go. I mean, it just gets harder as you get older, and family and just work, and it all becomes a little bit more difficult to dump a lot of time into what you're passionate about. So my encouragement is, if you have no responsibilities or people that you're taking care of, I mean, give it everything you have. Give it 18 hours a day, even 10, 12 hours a day. Like Jeff said, you don't need to, if you're spending 4 or 5 hours a night watching Netflix, that time could be spent doing so much to benefit and build your business. And at the same time, if you are someone who is working 40, 50, 60, 80, 90 hours a week, make sure you're evaluating your life as well, and you're not losing what matters most in those relationships at homes with your spouse or your kids, or for yourself, your health. So I know there's kind of two outlets we're looking at there. Again, everything is so person dependent. That's the biggest thing I hope we can express in this podcast is I don't believe there's only one way. I think a lot of people are like, you got to grind, you got to work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week if you ever want to be successful. I don't think that's true, but I also think everyone's definition of success is different. And if you're an 18-year-old kid with no responsibilities and you want to build a business, my encouragement would be like, yeah, do that because you can. If you've got a wife and kids at home and your health's not in check, then I would encourage you like, hey, get some balance in your life because at the end of the day, most people work hard to support their family. I mean, most people's why would say their family, their kids. And so make sure you don't lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing in working that hard.
And two, I think it maps out to, are you happy? If you're pumped playing 12 hours of video games a day and you make $25,000 a year and you live in your parents' basement, then awesome. Like, that's phenomenal. Like we said in the beginning, it's like, success is your own definition, So I wouldn't say you got to audit yourself. You can be the only one who judges what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And if your actions map your ambitions, then I think that you're winning. I think it's when your actions don't map your ambitions and you start to complain and you start to, woe is me, and, the world is doing this and, nothing's happening great for me. That's where you really need to audit your balance and figure out like, hey, maybe it's time that you put this down and you started working a little bit harder, or, maybe you're working too hard and you're complaining that you don't see your kids enough, then stop working so hard and go see your kids. I think at the end of the day, as long as you're happy, then you do you. That's the most important thing in life is taking care of yourself, being happy so you can turn around and take care of the people that you love. But with that being said, what are some keys to starting a business? If I wanted to start a business, I'm new to this, I've never done it, what are some steps? Where should I begin? What would be your advice?
Again, every situation is so different, but I would tell people the biggest thing that I learned with starting our business was make sure you have the resources. I think so many people get into something not realizing how much it's actually going to cost, whether that's from a cash standpoint or a time standpoint or a skill set standpoint. So my biggest advice is make sure that you're prepared going in. I would sit down and figure out, what is it going to cost me to start this business? And I probably times that by 10 and then go for that number to be able to start. And I also think too, I would encourage somebody to realize that they don't have to start all in. Even with this business, I stayed working with the job that I was in for months to help balance out what we were doing. But I would tell people, hey, if you have a job that's paying for you and you need that money to cover yourself, start part-time. Start at night, from 7 p.m. to 12 p.m. If it's something that you can do out of your house, or if it's sales online, whatever it may be, any aspect of the business you can work on prior to actually having to quote-unquote launch it, I would make sure that's done. So to really answer the question, what key steps? Have a business plan. Realize how much it's going to cost to start the business. Then I'd multiply that, honestly, by 3 or 4 or 5 times that. I know I said 10, but you never can expect all the expenses you'll have. I would say I put a lot of effort into our business plan, and a lot of the things I thought would cost a certain amount ended up being double or triple that, and it's something we couldn't foresee. So making a business plan, having the right amount of resources, and then having the right skill sets. Like Jeff talked about before, if you have a great passion for something but you don't have that business mindset, find a partnership, find somebody that you can work on this with, and then make sure that you're willing to do whatever it takes. So again, the steps would be make sure you have the right resources in place, have a great plan, have the partnerships that you need, and have the understanding that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. There's nothing worthwhile that I've ever found is easy to do. So make sure you just plan accordingly. I see so many people that make 2 mistakes. One, they just talk about what they're going to do forever and never actually do it, which that doesn't benefit anyone. Or 2, they get excited about something and they go for it quickly only to find it fail within the first month, 3 months, or 6 months. So I wouldn't rush it. Make sure that everything that you have is in place before getting started, so that way you're not just constantly in and out. A lot of people just constantly, they want to own a business, they don't know what, so they just start all these things. Have that plan, focus on that one thing, and give it everything you have.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's great.
So 3 key pieces of advice you'd give to someone on having a successful life. So I feel like we've talked about so many things. Let's narrow this down. Just give me 3 bullet points. If you had to pitch 3 to somebody right now, what would you say are the 3 most important things?
I mean, I think one is just creating happiness in your life. So for me, I think happiness stems from doing something that I love every day. And so if you can figure out what you love to do, they always say if you do what you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life, which you're always going to work. Work is work, even if you love it. But if you find something that you're passionate about, whether that's being an entrepreneur and building a business, whether that's being a stay-at-home mom, whether that's, being a working mom, being a working dad, whatever you do that brings you fulfillment, just go all in. Dive into it and get as good as you can at your craft. So I guess that would be my number one would be figure out what you love and build your career around that. And then number 2 is become a master of that craft. Just get as good as you can at that, and then build meaningful relationships. I think that you hear about a lot of people who are wealthy, or they made a ton of money, or they had all this success, but they never had meaningful relationships to share with anyone, and I think they die with a lot of regret. And so, building meaningful relationships, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your spouse, friends, just go out there and meet people and pour in that effort into people that you want to be close to. And I think if you can do all those things, if you can figure out what you love to do, become the best at your craft, and build meaningful relationships, you're going to be successful. Whether you make $30,000 a year, or you make $30 million a year, at the end of the day, it's not about the money. It's about the journey and the happiness along the way.
100%. I would say that's a big motivation of this podcast, and even for myself personally, is I think when you do finally go after what it is that you want, you push hard and you build and you grow it. I've learned from me that, as revenue goes up and sales go up and you grow, the realization is the happiness doesn't necessarily grow based off of what you're doing or your results. And I saw somewhere it's like the happiness is already in you. And that's something that is just so true. And I myself need to work on doing that, but encourage people to realize, enjoy the journey, enjoy the hard times, the startups, the people around you, because life just goes by so fast. I mean, the busier you get and the more you do, it's easier to take that for granted because you are so busy. You have so much going on, and you forget the whole drive behind it. You forget why you're doing it. So happiness is definitely key.
Yeah. I think another question that we get asked a lot, we got asked a ton when we were in network marketing, but you have people and they've got these big goals, they've got these big dreams, but people in their life don't believe in them, whether that's mom, dad, friends, whatever, just people that they're around just say, hey, like, you're not going to achieve that, you'll never be successful, you'll never do that. What advice would you give to someone who's got big aspirations, big goals, big dreams, but yet the people around them are just, they're not supportive or they don't believe in them?
Yeah, I would say with that, and the last question we're gonna go through that I was gonna touch on, will kind of tie into this, is just, you're motivated and you have all these goals, but you find yourself taking no action. So whether it's people are telling you they don't believe in you, or it's yourself telling you that you're not good enough, I think they both have a similar result. And what I'd say about people not believing you is separate yourself from that. If you've got negative people in your life, you've got to get away from it. There's a saying that you're the sum of your 5 closest friends. Take a look at the people you spend the most time with, and chances are your habits are going to map exactly what they're doing. So if you have people in your life that don't believe in you, encourage you, and want to pursue you in doing what makes you happy, remove yourself from that. And I think this would be a tough conversation, but if you have parents, moms, or dads that don't support you in what you're doing, get out of the house, move out. Take a chance. If you've got friends that every time you do something to move you one step closer towards your goal, you get made fun of and they just want to go out and party and drink and have a good time, remove yourself. At the end of the day, it's your life and you're in control of that.
I'm gonna cut you off real fast. So another thing too is if you do have these big goals and big dreams and big aspirations, and you're living with mom and dad, and maybe your parents aren't supportive, you're saying you need to cut off. That also means stop taking from them as well.
For sure.
I see a lot of people, my parents don't support me, and they want to go off and do their own thing, but they still want mom and dad to fund it. They still want mom and dad to pay their bills and pay for rent. So if you've got these big goals and big dreams and you believe in yourself and you know that you can achieve it, but maybe your parents don't, and you're living with them, then move out, but don't ask. Stop taking handouts from them. Cut them off from a sense of you don't need anything from them. They're still going to be your parents. And I think one thing that I think is true is that if your parents don't believe in what you're doing, and you move out of the house and you don't take money from them anymore, and you go out there and you prove it and you build something, like, they're going to be so proud of you at the end of the day, and they're already proud of you. A lot of times parents are just scared for their children. They don't want them to fail or get hurt, but at the end of the day, the only way to be successful is through massive failure. Success is like a pendulum, and you gotta swing back and forth into failure to get to that other side. So, not to cut you off, but if you're living at home and you're listening to mom and dad and they're saying, "Hey, don't do this," but you want to take that step, then it's like, hey, sometimes you got to cut those ties, and you've got to say, like, hey, I'm not going to keep taking money from you. If you're going to keep taking their money and living at their house, then yeah, like, you got to do what they want you to do.
For sure. I'm glad you jumped in, because that is so true. There's too many people that want all these big things and say they wish their parents supported them, and then you look back and they pay for their gas, their car, their food, every aspect of their life. Having success is not easy. And like Jeff just said, so much of the part of becoming successful is the journey, the person that you become. There's a reason why most people that win the lottery go bankrupt, is because you give someone a large amount of money, most of the time just magnifies that person and where they're at currently. So if you're in a situation where you're not happy with your home life, but your parents support you, well, then you either need to respect that or cut the ties of taking their money and go for it. We were very blessed to have parents that support us in everything that we did, but I moved back home 6 times in pursuit of trying to, figure it out and pursue my dreams. So again, not just the parents, for a lot of young people, the people that you surround yourself with. If all your friends are doing is smoking and drinking and partying, playing video games, and you're complaining about your life, you got to get out of that circle. It's going to be tough at first. You may be cut off, but again, it's your life. You only have one. If you truly want to make a change, you've got to take that first step and get around people that are going to encourage and inspire you. And if you don't have those people in your life, find them through the internet. Watch YouTube videos, read books, listen to podcasts. There's so many mentors out there that you can get that you don't have to actually have in person that can push and inspire you. But have the courage to step away from negative situations in your life and be surrounded by positivity, because you are worth it. I think every single person who has a goal or dream, regardless of what that is, deserves to achieve it from a standpoint, especially of, is the world needs it. Imagine what a place it would be if everybody went after what truly made them happy. I mean, so many people are unhappy in their day-to-day. I think the one standing difference between them and people who have found success is the willingness to take that first step. And that ties into, again, hey, I've got big goals, but I'm just not motivated. If you're sitting there and you're unhappy with your life and all you do is daydream about these goals and dreams and stuff you want to do, you've got to just take that first small step. I love the saying that motion creates emotion. And what that means is, if you're sitting on the couch and thinking about how miserable you are and you want to change an aspect of your life, literally you need to just get up and go take action. If you're unhappy with your weight, go to the gym, go outside and go for a walk. If you're unhappy with your job, start figuring out, hey, what can I do to set myself up in a position to leave this? It's like we said before, Jeff gave the advice of make sure your overhead's not too high. Practical information here is, if you have a job and you're not happy with it, what most people do is they come home, they complain about it, they're not satisfied, and they take the weekend to blow off steam, blow money to make themselves forget about that situation, and they go right back into it. The actual practical thing to do would be to make a game plan. Figure out how much money you spend every month, what you need to live, start putting that aside and saving it. Save up 3 to 4 months of your overhead, and then give your 2-week notice. Start figuring out what it is you want to do. Take part-time jobs on the side, not necessarily even to make more money, but to step into something else and see, hey, is this a route I want to go? But it all comes back to that long-term fulfillment versus the short-term fulfillment. So if you have people in your life that aren't encouraging you, you've got to get away from that, get the negative stuff out of you. And also, if you want to have a successful life, but you're not encouraged and motivated, it is such a snowball effect. But you've got to start, and you've got to start with those small steps every single day. And then you've got to have patience. I'm sure that's something we'll talk a lot about on this podcast over time, but patience is so key. And like before, I was giving an example of, we've been really working together for the last 9 years, and 2 years ago started our first, brick and mortar business. And I mean, that's 7 years that there's patience. We never stopped believing, never gave up. Just didn't matter. Move home 6 times, quit jobs, miss friends' birthday parties, get made fun of. It just didn't matter. We just wanted to keep pursuing what we knew would make us happy and make us fulfilled. So be patient, set a practical plan, cut the negativity out of your life, and go for it. So the last question here, what drives you and what is your why?
Yeah, I think for me, what drives me is just progression. I think we go through a cycle, I would say between the two of us, like every 3 to 6 months, where we have to like reevaluate what we're doing and kind of just say, hey, what are we doing here? What can we do to grow? Because I think as someone who's a deeply rooted entrepreneur, I can tend to get bored very easily. And so for me, always moving forward, always progressing is what drives me. It's what keeps me motivated. And so always trying to challenge myself, whether it's, with 212 opening more locations or whether it's with starting the podcast, just always moving forward is what drives me. And I think for me, what my why is my family, my wife and my kids. And I want to give them the best life possible. And I also want to teach them that, hey, you can go after your goals and your dreams and you can do whatever you want. And that if you put your mind to it and you work really hard, you're going to be successful. And like we said, success is measured, by what you feel you've achieved. And so that's it for me. I really am about progressing, growing every day, and then making sure that my family's taken care of and really leaving an impact. I think why we're doing this podcast is I feel like we've grown a ton over the last 9-10 years, and we've learned a ton about business, even for how young we are. And so we just want to kind of share that with people and let people know, like, hey, it's okay to fail. It's okay to suck sometimes, and you'll get through it, but you got to keep progressing. You got to keep persevering. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I can piggyback off all that. My biggest why is my wife and our family and supporting and providing for them. But I would also say, as far as me and personally is that progression, making sure constantly growing. And I think the same why is like you just said for this podcast, but nothing encourages me more than helping other people see the light in themselves and see the realization, like, you can do it. You can make anything that you want happen if you're willing to be patient and work hard. And to go from our situation as kids growing up, I went to college, had success with school, then to get out and serve tables and get into network marketing and to have that taken away and all the people that made fun of us and all the failures and moving back home 6 times, just all of the stuff that nobody sees, that nobody's willing to do, the late nights of not knowing what my purpose is, feeling this drive of just more. That's my big why, is to not only keep discovering that, but to show people, like, it's so worth it. I mean, there's just no better feeling than every day waking up and just having that weight taken off of you of, hey, work hard, pursue what's important to you, make an impact, help people, and it's all going to work out. I mean, sure. It's part of the ride. To me, it's, you do only get one life. Go for it. I mean, do everything you possibly can to create a life that not only are you going to be proud of, but that you're going to be happy in. So that would be my why, and that's our encouragement to everybody listening here is know that you are enough. take a hard look in the mirror too and have a real conversation and ask yourself, is there stuff that you can change in your life? Are there people you need to get out of your life? And what can you be doing more each and every day to get towards your goal? Make a plan, take action, and believe in yourself. It can happen.
Absolutely. With that being said, thanks again for listening to episode 2 of the What If audio experience. Remember that the change starts with you.
Bye for now.